Welcome to Healthier Together, Larimer County's public health podcast, where we come together for healthier lives, connected communities, and real conversations. From your local public health team, I'm your host, Tom.
And I'm Joanna. August is National Overdose Awareness Month, a time to remember those lost to overdose, provide space for grief, connection, and healing, and highlight the work happening in our communities to prevent overdose and support recovery. Throughout the month, we're featuring organizations across our community that work to prevent overdose, support recovery, reduce stigma, and connect people with care. Today, we're learning more about the Yarrow Collective with Ashleigh Jones, co-founder and director of community care and training, and Matt Schwall, reentry and peer support advocate. Ashleigh and Matt, thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us here.
To start, can you tell us a little bit about the Yarrow Collective and the work that you do?
So the Yarrow Collective is a peer support organization. We are completely peer-run. So what that means is everyone from our board of directors to our group facilitators all have lived experience. And what we mean by lived experience is not only struggles with mental health, substance use, but also like societal oppression, trauma, disability, just a myriad of things.
And how did the Yarrow Collective get started?
We started it through a grant through CSU. It was a guiding council, and it was to think about peer support in northern Colorado. And through that, me and the other co-founders started really like imagining what we could do and how we could do something different. And Yarrow was born out of that.
How did you land on the name Yarrow Collective?
We kind of had this like idea of plants, and then we were thinking about medicinal plants. And yarrow really stood out to us. It grows on almost every continent, and it's a pretty plucky little plant, but also it has medicinal properties. It stops bleeding internally and externally. And we kind of were thinking about the work that we do. You know, a lot of times services are putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, and what we're trying to do is actually like stop the bleeding.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that the Yarrow Collective does around substance use in particular?
So we take a liberatory harm reduction approach to kind of everything we do, including both substance use and suicidality. Our approach is non-coercive, and we're focused on treating people as the experts of their own experiences. A big part of that is thinking about our work through the lens of radical love, like really radically loving people as they are without an expectation that they need to be different or that they need to change. A lot of places have like an expectation list or like a criteria around whether you get the services. So if you get a hot UA or something, then you get kicked out or, you know, whatever. And with us, it doesn't really matter kind of what you got going on, whether it's like, you know, quote unquote, you're doing good or quote unquote, you're doing bad. We're going to show up for you either way and support you through whatever it is you're going through. Like I have people that I support that are actively using, but that doesn't mean they deserve love any less or care any less.
When we're talking about that radical love, I hear over and over, like, meet people where they're at. But the unspoken piece to that is like, meet them where they're at so we can move them to where we think they should be or where it's more palatable for society. And that's what we strive to do different is meet them where they're at as they are and radically loving them as is. People don't need to be fixed or saved. They are whole as they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Good job, Ashleigh.
I do have a question for both of you is, you know, what drew you to this work?
So when I got into recovery, I didn't really know like what I was supposed to do with my life. I didn't even know, like, I just had never lived like normal, quote unquote, really. So the first couple years in recovery, it was kind of a hard time. I just didn't know what I was supposed to do with my life. I didn't have much education, not much job history or like work history. So the first couple years was hard. Year one goes by, I just pretty much hanging out at home and doing like my probation stuff. Year two goes by, like I start putting on a lot of weight. My mental health kind of started going downhill. I was always told like, you're going to get in recovery and everything's going to be beautiful, you know, so many friends and all this stuff. And I get into recovery and I was kind of sucked in the beginning, you know, and I got to this point where I was thinking about just leaving recovery and going back to live how I used to live, because there I could take care of myself. You know, I was 30 years old at this time living with my dad, and it just, I just wasn't in a good spot. And I was having a talk with my therapist at the time about this. And he told me, well, before you throw it all away, Summit Stone's hiring for peer supporters. You're good at talking to people. People like talking to you. So why don't you give that a shot? And I applied for the job and I got it. Ashleigh's the one who hired me, actually. And I found like a purpose for all this stuff that I went through. I found like something I could use those experiences for like a positive thing, So I get to use like all the craziness I lived in my past. I get to use that to like connect with people and support people and walk with people through similar situations and circumstances. So yeah, finding peer work, not only do I get to support people, but it also changed my life. It changed the way I do everything. And I say this all the time, meeting Ashleigh, it also changed my life. Like peer work and Ashleigh being my mentor and stuff, it changed how I treat people day to day, my family. It changed everything. So yeah.
That's
Go peer work.
And how about you, Ashleigh?
Oh.
Yeah, it's hard to top that.
Yeah. I mean, similar to Matt, I have a pretty long history of like, I struggled with substance use. I have a really long history of childhood trauma, things that kind of culminated in involvement with the criminal justice system. I was in the halfway house and like kind of building my life back. And, I'll keep that part short, but I remember I was in the halfway house and I was getting my life back together, and I read this article in the Denver Post, and it said like, we're hiring peer navigators at the Denver Public Library, and the qualifications are like lived experience with houselessness, criminal justice involvement, and substance abuse. And I was like, check, check, check. And it was like the first time that like the things that like relegated to me to the sides or like were my damnation were something that like uniquely qualified me. And it was like, oh, I think I can do this. And, then I talked to my therapist at the time and I was like, hey, look at this article. I think I could do this. And she's like, I think you can too. So I took a training, and then that's kind of when I got in connection with, the folks that later became Yarrow, and we took some other trainings and just like really learned about the history and just like some other practices that I was like, oh, this is for me.
So Ashleigh, can you just kind of go into a little bit more about what peer support actually means? What does that look like day to day?
Yeah. The cool thing is like my peer support is going to look a little bit different than Matt's. So like each peer brings their own flavor to things, and we do group support and we do one-on-one support. So sometimes it looks as simple as just like meeting for coffee or going for a walk. Sometimes it's like supporting someone who needs to learn how to ride the buses. So we ride the bus routes with them. Sometimes it looks like going to court and advocating. Sometimes it looks like holding space in group. Sometimes it looks like just listening or sitting with folks. There's a lot of different ways, and like we each have our own flavor with our lived experience and our strengths. So it's like a really beautiful mix of a lot of things: advocacy, just direct support.
So Matt, can you tell us a little bit more about what it feels like to be a peer support for some folks?
Peer support to me it's just folks with lived experience, like with either like mental health, substance use, incarceration, being unhoused, and you're in a place in your life where maybe you've like evolved through that or grown through that, and now you're going back to support people who are still struggling in that. So like for me personally, I struggled with substance use addiction for, probably like 15 years. And so like my main thing is I want to go back and support the people that struggled like me, because I didn't have a lot of support. Like I had my dad, but outside of my dad, I didn't really have a whole lot of people in my corner. And I just want to be one of those people in somebody's corner, somebody that they know is going to show up regardless of what they got going on, somebody that they can count on being in their corner.
We say that it's folks with lived experience sitting there supporting each other, but I also don't want to like discount the amount of work and the training. We teach intentional peer support, but we also practice it. And peer support comes from a long line of social justice movements. It's from the consumer survivor ex-patient movement. And it was really folks who were psychiatrically incarcerated pushing for patient alternatives or controlled alternatives to that type of care. And it really was born alongside the disability justice movement. So not only is it this way of being with people, but it is also like a long history of a social justice movement. So there's that component. And there's a lot of work that we do to learn how to be in relationship with folks. We all think like, oh, I'm here to help. I'm a natural born helper. Yeah. But we have to take that hat off.
Absolutely.
Like oftentimes that's not what people need. And so we're confronting some of our are things, it's kind of uncomfortable to sit with somebody, in active use and watching them in pain, right? But we're not going to jump in and take control. We're not going to jump in and fix. We're going to be with you and move through this how it feels best for you. So I also kind of wanted to say that because I think a lot of times that part gets discounted, and we're always doing that work on ourselves so that we can show up in a way that feels supportive.
That's got to be difficult to kind of take off that advice hat at times. Because I know I've struggled with it for sure, to not just jump in and say, oh, well, here's how I would do it. And then that's not how it works for them.
Right. And to add a little bit to what Ashleigh said, with peer work, for me, so people are like, oh, it must feel really great helping people or whatever. And it's like, well, a lot of the times when I meet with people, I'm learning and growing probably as much as they are. You know what I mean? So that's a beautiful thing about peer work is it's like a relationship between two people, and it's not one person telling somebody how to live. It's both of us growing and like learning and evolving together. I meet with guys all the time, and I walk away feeling like, wow, I really learned a lot from that meeting or whatever. So.
And I'm assuming this is kind of with that by, for, with mentality that you guys are trying to embrace in that radical love. So can you tell us a little bit more about maybe the different types of peer support? It sounds like there's group support, one-on-ones. Is there, I guess, individuals that you guys meet with more regularly? When you say peer support, I'm sure it's a wide gambit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. So we have a referral form on our website where folks can ask for one-on-one peer support, and we have one-on-one peer supporters. Then we have drop-in groups. Some of them are affinity spaces like Alternatives to Suicide. We have a drop-in group for active drug users. We have a lot of different groups, but we also have a drop-in space where people can come and there's peers there that they can get support with. And then we have what Matt does in the jail. He goes into the jail and supports people, and I'll let him talk about that.
Yeah, so I go into the jail probably 4 days a week. I meet with men and women in the jail. I do like one-on-one meetings, I guess. I'll go onto a unit, tell the deputy who I want to talk to, and then they pull them out of their cell, and I meet with them in a conference room, which is crazy because this is the jail that I've been in. Like, I think I've been there 12 or 13 times or something like that. So now going back on this side of things, it's pretty wild. But yeah, so I'll meet with people one-on-one in there. Like, we'll talk about grief and family dynamics and just stuff like that. I got two dudes that I support that are in the halfway house right now. I met them both in the county jail. And both of these dudes have one did about a decade in prison. The other guy did almost 2 decades or a little over 2 decades. These are like street dudes, they went through a lot. Now they're both in the halfway house. Both of them are doing peer trainings right now. They've been helping us at our events and like helping us set up and tear down and hand out flyers and stuff like that. I just think it's beautiful to see these dudes with some really rough past and like rough history. And now they want to use that to help support people also.
I am curious, what does your caseload look like? I know that's probably not the right term for it, but, people have finite capacity. How many people are you guys meeting with for peer support one-on-one? Or I guess one person meeting with groups?
Well, for my wait list or caseload or whatever in the jail, I think I have 50 people on it right now. So my caseload is 50 people and the wait list has like 60 or 70.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, for community-based peers, it's a little bit less, anywhere between 5 to 10 people on that. And then groups, we haven't really had to cap out groups. One of our larger groups has 20 plus. Something really cool about our online spaces is we have people attending from all around the world.
Really?
Yeah. That always blows my mind. There's people coming from like Europe, New Zealand, all kinds of places. We have a chronic illness and disability group. And then we have an Alternatives to Suicide group that's online, and people come from all over the world.
What support is available for the peer supporters?
That's awesome that you say that. It takes a lot. And I think we have an incredible team and we really support each other. We also have another group called Peer Support for Peer Supporters. Yeah. So that runs twice a month and it's a virtual group so anybody can attend and just kind of supporting each other because, it can be difficult.
And I just want to give Ashleigh some more kudos here because my job at the jail, it can be like really heavy, actually. A lot of sad stories, a lot of really tough situations these people are in. And when I'm having a hard day, I call Ashleigh and I lean on Ashleigh. Yeah, she's always had my back through this stuff. I have, several people in my life that I can, lean on, but Ashleigh's a big one for sure.
We saw that Yarrow Collective provides some harm reduction services and support. What does that look like?
Yeah, I would actually say a lot of our support is based in liberatory harm reduction.
Yeah.
That boils down to is like really radically loving folks as they are and really supporting folks. So we have groups for active drug users. And our alternatives to suicide groups are harm reduction groups for folks who are struggling with thoughts of suicide. So yeah, it kind of is like a running theme through everything that we do. We do risk reduction as well, which is handing out Narcan and testing strips and things like that. We also have a liberatory harm reduction training that we offer to community partners as well as like community members.
Can you talk a little bit more about that liberatory practice of harm reduction and what that means for Yarrow Collective?
Yeah, there's a really cool book called Saving Our Own Lives by Shira Hassan. And it really talks about harm reduction and liberatory harm reduction at its roots. It talks about the history. It really was started with Black trans women supporting each other. And it was coming out alongside these social justice movements. And so really digging into the roots of how communities were keeping each other safe. I think a lot of times it gets focused on drug use or substance use, but it's really like a myriad of things. And really thinking about how do we keep each other safe and how do we keep our communities safe and how do we support each other. The way that harm reduction is kind of seen now is more like risk reduction. It saves so many lives. It's also pushing back against these things and really showing folks and giving folks a space to be themselves and be loved as they are.
In a previous episode, Colorado Health Network talked about little h, little r harm reduction being things like Narcan, syringe access programs, things like that. And capital H, capital R harm reduction being things like making sure that nothing is done about us without us.
Yeah.
Just thinking about who's at the table and how those decisions are made.
And it's like policies, laws, city ordinances, things like that are like, also causing harm.
You mentioned working with the Alliance for Suicide Prevention. Are there other community partners that you work with in order to provide some of those harm reduction services?
There's organizations who are doing things incredibly well, and we just want to partner and uplift them. We support Outreach Fort Collins. We have an amazing, beautiful relationship with them. NCHA, NCHN, all the orgs around Northern Colorado and organizations in Denver like Colorado Village Collaborative. A lot of folks like that. It feels like same team, right? Like we're all same team. If we can't do it, hopefully we have a community partner that can. Yeah.
Your mission talks about providing non-carceral consent-based alternatives to mental health services. Can you explain what those two terms, non-carceral and consent-based, mean and why they're important, especially in this work?
So when we say non-carceral, we mean providing support that doesn't rely on punishment, coercion, surveillance. I think folks are moving away from that now, but there's a lot of consequence-based support out there, for a long time. Even like certain mental health organizations, if you used, you would get kicked out of group, right? Or like, all the things that happen to folks who are trying to navigate substances and then like being required to like meet these certain standards. And then consent-based really means that people have autonomy and choice over what they do. That's one of the tenets of peer support is it's completely voluntary. So you can't be mandated. For true peer support, you cannot be mandated to do peer support. So it's completely consent-based. And I think that is one of the biggest things is like a lot of times, and especially in my story, I lost a lot of my autonomy throughout childhood and into my adult life. And so being able to have control over my life has meant so much. And that's one of the things that draws me to peer support is that it's completely voluntary and consent-based.
Can you share a bit about the community education and training that Yarrow Collective provides?
Yeah, so we offer a lot of trainings. We offer an intentional peer support training. We've gotten to do 3 intentional peer support trainings in Larimer County Jail.
Oh.
So we were able to bring these trainings into the jail to the folks in there. And not only is it like a career pathway, but some of the stuff that we talk about, like our first cohort was on the men's side and a lot of folks who had been like incarcerated for long periods of their life. Some of the ways that we were talking, it was just so beautiful to watch the light bulbs go off and the understandings. And like, one thing I thought that was super poignant was like, we have this part that we talk about when people ask, are you feeling safe? So like if you go to the doctor or you are going through these like things and they're like, are you feeling safe? All of those men in that room, nobody had ever asked them, if they were feeling safe. And that like just hit me in a way that I can't even explain. It was just like so heartbreaking. Because when you look at it, so many folks who are incarcerated have dealt with so much pain and trauma growing up and, you know, the ACEs and all of those things. And it's just heartbreaking to think how different society treats different people. So we have trainers who are certified through Intentional Peer Support Central. I mean, it's a 40-hour peer training that really focuses on the history and then the relationship building. It is recognized by COPA, which is the Colorado Providers Association. They're the ones that hold the credential for peer support in Colorado. And then we do a Alternatives to Suicide facilitator training, and that's a 16-hour, 3-day training. And the requirement with that one is you have to have lived experience with thoughts, feelings, or attempts of suicide to become a facilitator of that group. If that's not your lived experience, we also offer a When Conversations Turn to Suicide training. And those were both developed by the Wildflower Alliance. So they also have those trainings online and things like that, but we are able to offer them to our community. We also offer a 4-hour liberatory harm reduction training, and that was developed by our director of harm reduction, Lucrecia. And we have a intro to peer support. We also have a peer mentorship program. You know, sometimes you're kind of like left out there. You're like, I took this training and now what? And if you don't work for an organization, you don't have a lot of mentorship. So we created this mentorship program, which runs over 6 months, and it has learning circles. You get one-on-one mentorship with a seasoned peer, and you also get a group supervision type thing where folks who are also in the cohort and practicing peer support can come together and talk through some of the things that we've learned.
If listeners would like to learn more, get involved, support Yarrow Collective's work, where should they go?
So our website is yarrowcollective.org. You can get access to like our newsletter. There's a calendar for both our in-person and online like groups and stuff like that. You could check out all of our socials, Instagram, Facebook. I believe they're just Yarrow Collective. Yeah, has all of our information on there.
And if someone hears this and is also interested in maybe learning more or pursuing peer support work, where would you recommend they start?
There's a lot of peer support trainings. I'm always happy to talk anybody through, like offer any sort of like insider advice or like ways that maybe I navigated it. The advice that I would give is like, there's a lot of trainings out there. And just remember, like, it's not dogma. Take the parts that feel aligned and, you know, just keep your mind open, keep your heart open. And like, there's as many people as there are in this world are as many ways to embody peer support.
So is Yarrow Collective doing anything to observe Overdose Awareness Month?
Yeah. So we table at Overdose Awareness Days here in Fort Collins, Greeley, Loveland. But on actual Overdose Awareness Day, I think is the 31st of August, we are hosting a celebration of life for our community, for folks who have been lost to overdose. And yeah, we're going to have a big celebration. So anybody's welcome to join us over at our office, and we'll be having that.
If someone is struggling with substance use or knows someone who is, what resources are available to them for support?
I mean, there's a lot, you know, there's a ton of different organizations in the community that offer like support around that. You know, there's the Yarrow Collective, us. I mean, there's North Point and North Range and Summit Stone, and there's all sorts of help out there if someone's needing it.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking for like specific support from us, I would say just come on in.
Yeah.
Like come on into our drop-in space.
Yeah.
Reach out to us online. Someone will love to show up and sit with you and think about with you what that means and what you would like to look different in your life.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Ashleigh, Matt, thank you both so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
You can find links to learn more about the topics we discussed today in the show notes. If you have a question about public health in Larimer County or a topic you'd like us to discuss, let us know. Email us at healthiertogether@larimer.org. Thanks for listening, Larimer County.
Until next week, stay well, stay connected, and remember, we really are healthier together.